Why, hello there. Well, today you guys have joined us on a pretty special day. We're gonna be showing off some new stuff. Some of you guys have probably already played a little bit of it, but in case you haven't guessed already by the titles on the screen, I'm Alex Blonsky. I'm here with Andrew Spearin. We're doing the pre-show a little bit later than normal, but we had a little bit of a delay for a little bit of a meeting we had in Amsterdam. So yeah, Andrew, how you doing this week?
Not too bad. Looking forward to jumping into this gameplay of this map that we're revealing today.
Yeah, it's been a while. Some of you guys have been in there testing the map with us, so we appreciate all the help so far. And Mikey's actually going to be on in a little bit, actually playing the map. We're going to give you some, well, not a video insight, but take you through the map, a little bit of its history, show off some screenshots and that sort of thing. So without further ado, we're going to take you to Brittany, which is the former map Brest that was in our mapping contest. Can you give us a little bit of back history about the mapping contest?
Sure. So we partnered up with Game Banana and I think Corsair and MapCore to host a Day of Infamy mapping contest kind of earlier into the game's life cycle. And it was great. We produced a whole bunch of community-made maps as a result, and we were able to actually incorporate the winner, which was Crete, into the game. And Brest, I believe... Oh, we also incorporated Krupstall into the game. That was second place. And now third place was Brest. So the developers of that map, there was three guys who worked on that map. Let me pull up their names. It was Vaya, Terry, and Lizard. So these three guys were really active on MapCore, posted some amazing progress of their map. Like we had our eye on it the whole time. The reason why it placed third, though, is it only really supported the Liberation game mode. So from a layout perspective, it wasn't as versatile as a lot of the maps. Like from a development standpoint, we valued that versatility of incorporating a whole bunch of game modes, especially like the ones like Invasion, the more popular modes, but it just didn't support that. So I think that's particularly why it placed third. But nonetheless, it was beautifully designed. Like some incredible art assets were produced, like custom assets for this map. So we were keen on getting in the game. We gave them a bunch of feedback on the map, and so the creators went back and, after a little hiatus and break from it, took a fresh look at it, added some co-op support, added firefight mode, intel mode, a few more game modes, and talked to like one of our level designers, Squad, who was working on a map that was going to go into the contest, but he didn't, and we ended up hiring him, and the map Foy is now in the game. But Squad gave them some pointers, like in terms of scale and the visual updates and that kind of stuff. So yeah, without hopefully not that much changes to it, but enough to push it over the finish line, we are happy to include it in the next major update of the game. So you can already subscribe to the map on Steam Workshop, and actually, I'm not even sure if you need to subscribe.
No, you can just actually
you just join the server. It will automatically download. Sweet. Yep. So yeah, you don't have to do much, but that's what Mikey's going to be playing through later today. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So in case you guys haven't already done it, go into your the instructions are in our blog post for this week if you actually log into Day of Infamy. But you can go in, switch the beta mode. It's gonna download about a 700 meg patch, so you're in the beta, and then you'll be able to play the new map. We'll give out server instructions when Mikey's on, and yeah, we'll be playing the map later, but we just want to give you a little bit of back history into the map and that sort of thing. So one thing I did want to show off is kind of like the evolution of the map itself. So I went back to the old MapCore development thread, And it's kind of cool to see some of the art assets and some of the things that have changed over time. Like you can see like the texture work on like the shop, like the first thing posted just looks awesome here. Some of the stuff has been changed or removed since then. You can see him kind of like developing it over time with like the different foliage, some window textures and models, the cranes. Kind of similar to the cranes we have in Dunkirk as well, but again, we're on the coast of France, aren't we?
Yep. So yeah, Brest is a city on the Brittany kind of peninsula region in France. So it's seaside map, and during the war, after the Normandy invasion, like the Allies really needed to capture some ports so they could actually transport more of their supplies to the troops in France. But there was a long, bitter battle to kind of push westward towards that Brittany Peninsula. And Brest in particular was like heavily defended by German paratroopers. So it was under siege for a while, and the city got obliterated by that. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the history. I think we'll get in a little more. Sorry, I kind of jumped the gun on that, but all this history stuff excites me.
Yeah. Oh. It's always cool that like a lot of our maps are based on actual battles, right? That's the cool part about doing something historical, is you have all this stuff that you can rely on and you can use for inspiration, right? So we'll show off some of that inspiration, what the battle looked like in a little bit. But yeah, going through some of the assets, you can see what it takes to actually create a map. Here's like a really good photo of like the dockside, where you can see like a lot of the stuff that was here was actually kind of modeled in the map. I also found some other photos of some inspiration for things that weren't exactly together in real life. Like there's some areas that were separated from this area that were kind of pieced together to try to make like a collage, because you don't want it to be the actual size of the town, right? Otherwise it's not going to be a fun map, right? You're not going to put in stoplights. You're not going to put in routes for cars all over the place. You need routes through buildings if you want to have indoor combat. So lots of changes have to happen over time.
Definitely. I love my motto of reality is a starting point, not the end goal, because if you're trying to make reality in a video game, that's kind of like the white elephant. It's really difficult. You're not going to get a one-to-one representation. So why bother trying? So what you do is you take bits of inspiration, piece together that impression of reality, and hopefully it kind of suspends that in the mind of the player, that they will feel that it's realistic, but they'll know that they're still in the game. So I think the artists and developers on this have like really accomplished that. Like, yeah, if you're looking at that cathedral is a really nice centerpiece in the map, or not really a centerpiece, it's off to the flank, but it's a great kind of like landmark area to fight in.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because you can see like at the time where it was put on the map is kind of put down near the dockside, and that position has actually changed over time, and the feel of these ruins has actually changed. Like this old church and these ruins have actually gotten a lot bigger since then, and there's like a shrine in there, some like candles and lighting, and a lot more foliage as well.
Exactly, and it's great to look into the process for anyone like looking to learn level design in particular. Like go and look at these at MapCore, especially, where a lot of progress is posted. Like I think people, especially when you're first starting out, you end up with the end product, and you look at that and be like, oh wow, it must have been planned for like this from the start. But no, like it goes through process of iteration, starts with a block out where you don't see the art, or what we saw in the earliest posts of this thread is like what so I know some of our artists like to call a zoo, where they're kind of putting together a little miniature taste of what the art direction is going to take. So yeah, if you're more kind of art oriented, you could take that approach, do like little pieces of the map. But overall, the design side of things, level design, you want to think about that overall layout, and to quickly get to that, you just got to throw in gray boxes and shape and sculpt it in towards that end state. So it's a long process with a lot of people involved. So I was really happy to see that these three guys got together, teamed up to work on one map, because that's what it takes to accomplish this visual fidelity and the kind of like creativity that goes into it.
Yeah, and you can see like this kind of setup, like you see there's nothing around this specific area because they're mapping it and modeling it separately for this like rocky cemetery type area. And I've seen this part in the game. And yeah, you kind of like fit these pieces together. So it's a lot of like the photos of these things have changed a lot over time. Like this courtyard, I've actually taken screenshots for to do the promos for the stream today, and it's changed a huge amount over time. So it's kind of amazing the amount of changes and like the way that they're structured. Like it's not always set out as a this is the overview of the map and this is exactly what it looks like, and they model exactly after that. They're mixing and matching these pieces together and trying to make it into something playable for you guys, right? So yeah, I wanted to show out that off. And then we got there was a second thread that actually opened up over time because they took a hiatus off to and then came back to finish it. And you see like especially this dockside here got expanded a ton, like how small it was since back then and how big it is now in the map. It's just a big difference.
Well, definitely, once you get to that release state, you get feedback immediately. You can't solve every problem. You can't think of every problem when you're going through the design process. So nothing can replicate it like actually getting players in the game, seeing what happens. Like you can assume what's going to happen in that dock with your design intent, but you got to get those results and then change it accordingly to just really improve it.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's check out what the actual map looks like. I'll show you some screenshots. Some of the guys that have checked us out on social media have probably seen some of these, but there were some really cool train models. I know some of our developers were saying it looked pretty cool. There's actually a few trains and a bunch of train tracks on this map.
That's a really nice locomotive.
The Tiger tank, I believe. You can't really see it on this side, but I know the tread is like come off and it's kind of like on fire permanently while you're playing in game. So that's kind of cool too. Another tank, just trying to get a cool angle for screenshots. And you see, like this is part of that church area that we were showing off earlier, and now it has like you can see the walls are kind of built up. It's a bit less ruined. And you actually have like the altar here and some really good texture work here on the cross. And you see like this is the big difference from the outside of the ruined church. You can see like how much it's changed. It used to be just the pillars inside, and now it's an entire church that has clearly gotten bombed out. There is that courtyard area I was talking about that's changed a lot. They used to not have like, especially the texture work they had here. It used to be kind of shaped a little bit different. They added the like the barbed wire, a lot of like flaming cans for like some atmosphere, vehicles all over the place and that sort of thing for cover. You find a lot of maps early on, they're kind of like bare bones. This is like the hallway that somebody goes through. And then stuff gets added after the fact, especially for cover and that sort of thing, so that it's more interesting to play than just having like these corridors you run down. Here's an in-town shot. You see again some cool lighting and some texture work on each one of the cafes. Blown out window, and I believe that's the same Tiger tank we looked at before.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part of the map is like, I think that tank is moving towards a bridge and that's like right in the middle. There's this cool kind of verticality to it. You've got underneath the bridge, you got on the street level, and then there's some buildings that sort of overlook it as well. So yeah, it's definitely an intense sort of focal point.
Yeah. And there's kind of like an overview, like screenshot of that area. So
yeah, exactly.
There's the church, there's the bridge with the tank in the middle, and there's all sorts of ways to cover and hopefully take points across this bridge. But there's also like really good like flanking positions. If you come in from this side, you can actually go through this building, kind of flank from the side. You can actually run under the tunnel here. There's no way through this tunnel part, but you can definitely come in around this side as well. And then a little bit closer up that same area. So here's the dock side. We've seen this train in the other screenshot, but you see how expanded it is compared to where it was before. I'll just give you a comparison. Like that area basically wasn't really there before, and you kind of got like an early model of one of the cranes there. Now it's pretty huge. There's a huge rail bridge that runs out here, as well as like out in on the I guess that's technically the ocean, right? There's like a big island. It actually really looks really cool. I did a flyby with no clip on just to see it, and it's actually pretty well modeled. It looks really cool.
Yeah, that's great attention to detail, because that's just like basically the skybox. It's the edge of the map, but they've still put that attention to detail in there to bring you into the environment, suspend that sense of reality.
Yeah, because if it was just here in the middle of the sea, it definitely wouldn't look like the actual place. When we look at screenshots later, there's definitely a lot of stuff happening down by this dockside in the real city. Here's an interior shot. I thought it was kind of cool because it's almost like a gothic shot. You got like the wine storage over here, lots more wine storage over here, and I just like the atmosphere and the lighting inside this interior view. It's a really good sniping spot out here to actually snipe down to the dockside. And then from the water view, just so you can see the docks again and like the finished model for the crane. And then just one more view of that palace type place. So I think we're gonna look a little bit more into like the actual inspiration and like the real life events. I know you're a little bit familiar with the real life events, so can you like summarize?
Sure. Yeah, as I mentioned before, after D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, the Allies really needed some ports, so they had to push kind of westward towards the Brittany Peninsula, which is not the same as the Cherbourg Peninsula. Cherbourg is closer to where Normandy was, so there was a bitter battle there. But as they progressed through St. Lo and past St. Lo, they headed towards Brest. So it was fought, I think, in like September of 1944. So that's like a few months after the invasion. They needed, like all that supplies, especially. They built like what were called mulberries, which were kind of portable port that they towed from England on ships, and they set that up on the coast of the Normandy beaches, but due to some like severe weather, after less than 2 weeks, like that got destroyed. So the Americans who like landed on Utah Beach captured Cherbourg, so that was good, but the Germans destroyed the harbor facilities before they surrendered, so that was useless to them. So yeah, as Germans kind of were fought back down the Brittany Peninsula, they started to kind of garrison themselves into cities like Brest and St. Lo. So the Americans primarily kind of like spearheaded these attacks against the Germans there, and especially the like German paratroopers were defending, and they have like a bitter reputation for just fighting to the last stand. The last man, the last bullet. They fought like that in Italy, and so they fought like that in France as well. There was a German general, Ramke, I believe his name is. He was like a paratroop veteran of the Afrika Korps, and his forces, the 2nd Parachute Division and a couple other infantry divisions of the Wehrmacht were about 40,000 men. So you can imagine like all those Germans under siege in Brest. It was a pretty bitter fight. So the Allies actually dropped a lot of bombs, like bomber missions. Even the RAF Bomber Command that typically would fly at night flew day missions against it. I'm actually, from the past, I'm a kind of a collector of military stuff, but I've been very fortunate to get access to a family friend who her father was a Lancaster bomb aimer with the RAF, and he flew during a day mission against Brest at this very time. So actually digitally scanned the logbook and gave it back to the family, but that's a really rare kind of document to see, and it kind of amazed me that he was part of that. One of the very few day missions against Brest. They were trying to hit the harbor, or actually no, they weren't trying to hit the harbor because they needed the harbor, but they're trying to smash the German paratroopers into submission. That didn't work because what it took was actually boots on the ground infantry fighting street to street. And I think one of the best anecdotes when the Americans finally forced the Germans to surrender came from a U.S. Brigadier General Charles Canham, who at the time was deputy commander of the U.S. 8th Infantry Division. And so he arrived to accept the surrender of this German general, and the German asked this general, who was ranking lower, to show his credentials. And then so Canham, the American, turned around and pointed at his troops and said, "These are my credentials." And so that phrase actually became the division's motto. So the U.S. 8th Infantry Division, their motto is now, "These are my credentials."
Oh, it's so good. I love it. Yeah.
That's up there with the other general during the Battle of Bastogne, who was asked to surrender, and his response to the Germans was just nuts. It's like that's the all-time best anecdote. But this was up there, I think. So yeah, it was a pretty intense battle for Brest. So as you can see, the map, it's got that balance of destruction. It's got the inspiration of the landmarks of the harbor and everything. So I think they did a good job of kind of developing the atmosphere of sort of that kind of siege mentality and the Allied kind of liberation of Brest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I find it crazy going back through the old photos how bombed out the city actually was after the battle. I'll just switch over to show you guys, but yeah, here's like a good example here of like the actual city after the battle, and you can see the structures are still kind of there, but there's nothing left. There's no glass in the entire city basically, and a lot of the buildings are just pocked with shells. They're destroyed.
Yeah, I think a lot of that destruction is evident from the bombers. It would have been the U.S. 8th Army Air Force during the day for the most part. B-17 is dropping bombs on there, and the RAF Bomber Command at night, like round-the-clock bombing to destroy that city and hammer the Germans into submission. But one of the techniques they used was the British in particular have been doing a lot of reading about this, but they dropped what was called a cookie. It was a 4,000-pound bomb, and the shockwave alone of that would kind of blow the roofs off of houses. The tiles would just be obliterated. And along with the 4,000-pounder, I don't know if they use this tactic necessarily in Brest, but they certainly did it to create a firestorm in like Hamburg. But they would drop incendiaries, like these kind of, I think they're like 4 pounds or something each, but clusters of incendiaries. So after the cookie blasts the rooftops, these little incendiary bombs would just fall into the building and set it ablaze. So that's what the results of that would be, is just these hollowed out husks of buildings.
It's crazy. Like I found this photo absolutely nuts. This is outside of the city, clearly like a forward position, and a German base that basically got bombed by the Allies, and you can see there's no base. It's a trench. It's crazy. There's nothing left. So
yeah, that definitely looks like artillery just hammered that position. And yeah, this picture now you can see just like the landscape is desolate. It kind of looks like World War One. The result of the artillery and all the bombing just created an absolute moonscape of the earth.
At one point there was trees over here. Like there, you can tell there's like bushes and trees, and now there's nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So here's some of the examples of the artillery and why it's so bombed out back and forth between the two sides. Look inside the behind the lines. Clearly medics carrying through an injured soldier. Just kind of cool to get that history. It doesn't show anything of the map, but you see the actual, like some of the events that happen.
Yeah, and the Allies apparently took 4,000 casualties and losses. So that would be like wounded or killed in action. 4,000 men were almost sacrificed, just to liberate this one city.
Yeah. This one I found really cool. I actually found as well. I don't have it right now, but somebody went in like remastered this with color as well.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty famous photo and really cool. Everybody just taking cover. I love this shot actually. It's super high resolution for the time as well.
Yeah, that's a great photo, and you can just see that. You can imagine in your head like what's around that corner.
Yeah. So yeah, looking some tanks rolling through. Here's like an overshot of part of the harbor here. You can see where massive bombs have gone off and left crazy critics considering that's an entire massive, what do you call it, ship.
Yeah, look at the accuracy there. That is amazing. Those definitely came from the air.
Yeah. You see they're spaced equidistant, right? Like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. That one's a little off.
Yeah, and what the RAF in particular could accomplish what they called precision bombing. They had a very early ground radar system called H2S. Unfortunately, the Germans couldn't jam it here, like in France. So the lead planes, known as Pathfinders, would fly and drop like marker flares right on the aiming point. So once they got that visual sort of aiming point set, like it was guided by the radar, the other bombers in the stream could just fly over and drop on that same point. So as they're flying over every couple of minutes or even like tens of seconds between each other, you can see how that sort of effect can be accomplished.
Okay, so here's an example, this was a photo of people actually coming back to the city afterwards. I find this a crazy shot because like you've got these women clearly ridden there on their bicycles and hopefully probably to find their homes or to find their businesses or who knows, maybe even to try to find their families. And you just see how ruined the city was after this battle.
Yeah, quite the contrast in their dresses against the destruction there.
So looking through here.
So yeah, that looks like a U-boat pen.
Yeah.
So that's also what Brest was known for, is they had a U-boat base there that would have, before the invasion, would have sent out German U-boats into the Atlantic to sort of, stalk and hunt down the Allied convoys. Britain was fortunate to have America and Canada, constantly supplying them with troops and with supplies to keep them going in the war. So those U-boat bases were definitely prime targets for the bombers, especially prior to the invasion.
Right. So the screenshot I have, or the photo I have up right now, is actually like a more modern photo of the town and like one of the bunkers that's set up. And if you go into the map, this bunker is actually in the map. It doesn't have like grass in the background. It isn't kind of desolate like it is here. It is part of the map, but it's modeled to almost exactly what it looks like in this this photo right here. So another example, more bombed out streets. Here's a good harbor shot, so you get kind of like the view in a closer up view into the harbor, some of the cranes and some more of the destruction. You were talking about the U-boat facility. Well, this was a bomb that came through the actual U-boat facility right here, and all the destruction it did.
Wow. Yeah, some of the bombs they drop, they put like a very long time fuse on it, so they would actually like embed into the concrete, from falling from thousands of feet above, and then like even an hour or two later they would explode. So it was designed to really just like they would time the bombs all over the place. So some of them would immediately impact you in the raid, and then hours later they'd keep going off, and that's what the result is there.
Okay, so just make this one a little bit bigger. So see here, some of the humans weren't the only casualties. Also had some dead animals, but yeah, it's interesting. A lot more destruction. And then another artillery shot. Obviously, we've talked a lot about artillery so far, but yeah, just a major factor in the battle. So I think what we can do now is, if you give me a second, I'm going to load up Day of Infamy, and we can take kind of a fly through. But yeah, you saw how many changes there have been in to the map, and like the inspiration and that sort of thing so far. Yeah, I think that this one is actually like one of the cooler maps I've seen in terms of like all the different types of structures kind of all in one specific place. Like it's not just a town. You have like a bridge area, you have like the church, there's some open areas, there's a graveyard, so there's all sorts of very different places that you can go in and battle. So I'm just gonna load up Day of Infamy now. And just give you guys a show.
So there've been some questions of like, where's Mikey? And Mikey's coming. We're stalling. We're waiting for him. He's currently in a meeting right now in Amsterdam. So once that wraps up, he will be good to go. But we're slightly delayed today. Apologies for any inconvenience. But hopefully there's no inconvenience. But yeah, we'll keep showing you Brittany, the new map that's coming in game with the next update that we're putting out, I believe, or maybe I can't promise that. Sorry, it may or may not be in the next update.
So, yeah, just loading in so I can show you guys. But we will do a fly through. Okay, so taking a look at it, here's the area I was talking about. Here's the dock side. Obviously, it's pretty pristine right now because you guys are going to be bringing the battle to this area soon. But yeah, all the train work, really cool crane over here, and yeah, I love the actual train bridges themselves. It looks really cool. It kind of ends up here, but you don't get to see that when you're in first person. There was that area I was talking about, that bunker. So here's that bunker there, and it's actually pretty close. Like, it looks very similar to me to what the original looked like. And they added like a radio tower to the top as well. But yeah, all sorts of different types of buildings all kind of packed into one area together. Factories, along with houses, along with like mansion type areas. Go through, you see some of those like artillery emplacements, and they are all over this map. Go through and get to see that kind of mansion type area I was talking about with the gates, the car, and the tank. And then we'll come over to this church, which has clearly been bombed out. There's a like a second story here which is a pretty decent sniping spot. And then the altar that we were looking at before. Some of the countryside this is not like a passable area, but you can see some of the stuff that's in the background. Like this area is kind of set up. Tanks. I believe the starting point for one of the sides is over here. And I think this is the coolest, but like this would probably be the central battle point for the map. Is this area here with the tank and the bridge? I'd say there's just so many areas of entry into this point, and yeah, taking this point is probably the biggest the biggest objective on the map in terms of all of them, and probably one of the hardest ones considering all the ways that people could fire in on this spot.
So I see some questions in the chat. Isn't this map already in the game? It's currently in the beta branch, and we'll be playing it shortly here once Mikey is ready, good to go. But right now it's available in the workshop, so you can subscribe to it there and check it out yourself. But yeah, this will be in the game in a future update. It may or may not be the next one, but it's certainly on its way.
Yeah. Yes, and I was talking about before the that island area. So the island area is actually pretty big. Like you can see it here, and there's like a bridge across to like another island area. This is how it kind of looks like when you're on the ground, so you can actually see it and don't see the clipping and that sort of thing in the background. And I'd be very surprised if anybody comes out to this area here, but there's lots of open areas here. It's not there's only like a few like indoor areas with tight points. There was that that kind of gothic area I was showing you earlier, and I believe that is up in one of these rooms in here. But yeah, it's, I would say in terms of like a comparison to this map, there's a lot more outdoor areas than some of our other maps. I would say like the amount of fighting inside is would be a lot lower than most maps, at least when I did my playtest through. It's like the indoor areas are more of a route through to get to more outdoor areas. So I think that rifles and that sort of thing, bolt action rifles, will be very good on this map. Flamethrower maybe not so much.
Cool. And yeah, people are asking if Mikey's going to be playing in the beta branch, and I believe so. So yeah, you can get ready for that. Opt into the beta branch. You can do that by right-clicking on Dave Infamy in the library. Go to Properties. There's a Betas tab. You can go to the drop-down menu there, and it says Beta, and there is no beta access code necessary, so you can just leave that blank. Hit Close. It should queue up your update, so go to your downloads, make sure it starts updating, and then you'll be good to go.
Okay. So yeah, so I think normally we do like some chat questions at the end of the stream, but we can do some right now if we want as well. So if you have any questions, you can throw them in chat. You got Andrew on stream, and I can answer some as well.
Sounds like a plan.
Are they both devs? I don't know. I'm more of, I don't like the dev tag for me because it's not like I'm actually developing anything. Usually I'm interacting with you guys on Facebook and Twitter, but Andrew certainly has done lots of work into developing Day of Infamy and Insurgency. So he definitely can answer any in-game questions. Andrew, what did you have for lunch? Did you even have lunch yet?
I have not had lunch yet. It's only 12:44 here, so I don't know what I'm going to have for lunch.
I usually, whenever we do the stream, I'm usually having lunch like super late, because either I'm having it really early or I'm having it late after stream. There's no really in between because it's like right around noon here and we go for 3 hours plus. So
Yeah. So Alex, why are the lights turned on in the basement?
yeah, and if you want to know what I'm having for lunch, if you've noticed, I've got some like I don't know, some like scabs up on my face, and that is from doing or what do you call it? I was making soup this week. So I made soup this week, and it was a potato leek soup. And the recipe said that you're supposed to use like an immersion blender, so like the stick blender that you put inside to blend it up, so you're not having huge chunks of potatoes in it. But I didn't have one, so I used the regular blender, and I took it out of the pressure cooker. And if you know anything about a pressure cooker, they go up to, I don't think it's like 250 degrees. It's basically cooks anything like 3 times faster, so it's way hotter than like boiling temperature. And so I take the soup directly out of there, put it in the blender, like push it down, and I guess I filled it up too much because it basically exploded right in my face, and I managed to burn my face. So this is the second facial injury we've had on stream since we started doing the pre-show, I think.
Yeah. Ouch.
Yeah. So tip for everybody, when it says to use an immersion blender, don't try to cheap out and use your regular blender. Go get a goddamn immersion blender.
Yeah.
Let's see. Alex, why are the lights turned on in the basement? Well, technically I'm on the 2nd floor of my house. I just hate light. I mean, the entire room, if you see in the background, is painted, it shows blue and shows like a dark blue, but it's really like in the dark it's way darker than that. So I just hate light. Let's see. Are you going to optimize the map further? Are there numerous spots where FPS drops are very low? I'm not sure about the FPS drops being low right now, but it's something that obviously that we have play tests like we had in previous weeks and this week, and hopefully in coming weeks where we can actually go in and test that out. If there are spots to optimize on the map, this is the time where we can do some of that when people are in there and play testing. And that's why we appreciate you guys sticking around and hopefully doing some play testing with us.
Yep, and give your feedback. You should probably post in the forums. That's the best place that people can respond and we can see it. It's on the record. We do take stuff into account that we see in the chat and whatnot, but it's a lot harder, and especially harder in game to take all the notes of here's what we should, all the suggestions or bugs reported. So if you see something in game while you're playing it, take a screenshot or take note of it, post on the forums. Then we've got that record there that we can go back to and we can show it to the level designers and say, hey, here's some feedback to take into account.
Let's see. There's a question about why make this map for Source. Well, clearly, like it would take us a long period of time to make Day of Infamy for Unreal, which we're working on with Sandstorm. But so far, the Sandstorm assets that I've seen so far are pretty awesome. So I don't know. I could never say that like down the road that Day of Infamy is something that we do in there because it's way too far away. We're too busy with our heads down doing Day of Infamy on Source and of course developing Sandstorm. But yeah, we like doing stuff in the Unreal Engine, and we like providing everybody that has played our game with new content. So, and especially for free, letting you guys test it early and that sort of thing as well. So yeah, we appreciate you guys sticking around for playing Day of Infamy on Source. Let's see.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like if you've been playing games long enough like we have, we've seen a lot worse in terms of graphics and engines, and it was still fun. Like the fun factor is there regardless. Like there's 8-bit games that are still fun. So just because there's a bigger, shinier object out there that looks better doesn't mean it's going to be more fun. So you can still have a great time in DUI even if it is a Source engine.
Okay. Let's see. Going back to chat. When is the next patch, and we'll be fixing some of the sound and movement bugs? Well, if you've kept up with our timeline with previous content releases, usually there's kind of like a... if we're testing stuff out now, you kind of get a timeline of when that stuff is coming out. Obviously, if we're showing it to you in the public, it's getting closer to launch, so we're not there yet, but we'll be playing some content over the next few weeks at least. Do we use Reddit much? I use Reddit every day. I have checked out I do check out the Day of Infamy Reddit and the Insurgency Reddit. And there's actually, I get a lot of good videos that we post sourced through there. But yeah, the easiest way to send stuff to us is probably to tag us on Facebook and Twitter, and we get that right away. We can go and repost it. But yeah, we definitely check out Reddit. Yeah,
I lurk there too. I think a lot of games do official Reddit subreddits for the games, but we want to make sure that we still have an independent fan base that can write and express as they feel. So we kind of let Reddit, our games for Day of Infamy and Insurgency, let the subreddits kind of moderate themselves, and in the past maybe that has kind of backfired on us, so we don't moderate as much, and some rumors or misperceptions spread a little bit, but hey, it's the internet, so you just gotta get to the actual sources of truth and stuff. But anyway, we do certainly lurk on it, and I chime in from time to time, but not as much as I have in the past.
Let's see. We always get questions about what factions would be adding to the game. If you actually go and check out our blog on the New World site, Mikey actually answers that question this week, and about how we add factions and that sort of thing, and what we have in terms of time and resources, the amount of time and resources it takes to put these factions in the game. It's not just modeling something and getting somebody to run into a studio and try to replicate a voice. There's a lot of testing that gets involved, and it's pretty and that means there's time that gets taken away from other things as well. So we're looking at adding new stuff in terms of factions, but we can't promise anything yet.
Yeah, the same goes for units. One of the biggest technical hurdles for us at the moment that we are working to address is the game Day of Infamy currently in 32-bit. We're working towards boosting that up to 64-bit, and with that we'll open up some more memory on our end, so that we can incorporate a lot more voiceover and art assets. So in the meantime, me personally, I want more units all the time, and I could see the demand from the community. I can see where that's going. It's a great opportunity for us as a developer, as a designer. So we would love to do that, but we're working on boosting the game up to 64-bit. So we'll see how that goes. It's in progress, but we certainly do want to add more units in particular. So yeah, it's just a matter of time.
I did see Atheist Nightmare said, I think I would rather have that than some old war type game or futuristic game. So I like how we have like two different games that are, I find they're very different, because Insurgency, you get all this cool tech, right, that allows you to kind of be, you're supposed to do a lot more teamwork, but you can go solo a little bit more, even though a lot of the time you shouldn't. And I find like the old tech of World War II makes you rely on your teammates a lot more. And we've definitely added a lot more features to the game that make you rely on teammates, like the officer and the radio man type situation, and having that reliance on two different classes to try to make you work together more often, and try to make you more as a team to try to capture objectives and that sort of thing. And I think that's something that we might want to bring to the new Insurgency as well.
Yeah, and I think with the sort of like hardcore nature of the gameplay, where one-shot kills exist, With Insurgency, that could happen a little more distant engagements, firefights. But with DOI, with iron sights and the lack of scopes or whatever, like it brings the combat closer. So it's a lot more fierce and a lot more personal.
Yeah, for sure. When you download the beta, do you need to manually reinstall the beta to play normal DOI? Okay, so basically when you download the beta, I believe when I did it today, it was like a 700 meg patch to play the beta. Afterwards, I believe you get a similar size patch. You don't have to totally reinstall install the game. So it is a little bit of a download, but at this point with internet connections the way they are, unless you're in, I guess it's Australia, and you have some pretty bad internet, you should be able to download it pretty quick.
Yep. So yeah, you will have to opt out of the beta in order to join the regular branch servers again after. And it looks like Mikey is almost ready to go.
Sweet. Are there servers going to be buffed to 40 players? I remember a blog post or something about it. I don't remember this blog post. Do you, Andrew?
40-player servers was something we experimented with back in early access. Performance was kind of bad. So maybe we can explore that if we hit 64-bit. I don't know. That's probably a question for Christian to answer. But yeah, who knows? The support is there. So I believe like community servers can set that up, but official servers right now are not set to it.
Yeah, I mean 32 is a lot of players. When I played on one of the custom servers, it was a ridiculous amount of killing, and with the timers too. I think you might have to adjust the timers on some of the things as well as the objectives. So it'd be different. You almost have to put in a game mode specifically for it, because it's hard when you have these variances in the number of people on each team, right?
For sure.
Mikey is eating a calzone right now. Well, he's going to be wrapping up eating a calzone because he's coming on in a second.
I could go for a calzone right now.
But yeah, I wanted to thank you guys for sticking around through showing off the map and that sort of thing. And Mikey will be coming on here in a second to take you guys through and lead you guys through a play test. So I think we'll wrap things up. Just want to thank you, Andrew, for coming on. And
no problem.
And I believe you're going to be hosting next week, right?
Is that next week? Yeah.
Is it next week? Yeah.
Yep. Mikey's taking a vacation, so we're going to fill in for him. I guess that'll be me next week, leading the charge of the gameplay live stream.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll be here to help out as well. So yeah, we'll be doing some more playtesting next week, but I want to thank you guys, and stick around for Mikey. Stream might drop for a second, but he'll be back on. So thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.